What's happening?
Hey, Titus,
How you doing?
brother, I'm excited to talk to you. Let me tell you.
Well, I'm happy to be here, man. Let's chop it up.
Yeah, man, I've been a big fan of yours for years. I'm talking about Deadwood. I'm talking
Oh,
about man, Transformers, everything you've done. And I remember I'm a big Michael Connelly fan, and I read the Bosch books years ago. So,
yeah.
and I saw that first episode almost over a decade ago.
Wow. Yeah.
You were you were Harry Bosch, man.
Thank you, brother. That means a lot to me because that's the daunting part. Because I do what everybody does when they're dedicated, they read something, we formulate our own physicality, how that character sounds, how they walk, what they do. And so we create a kind of prejudice, right? And so my only thing was I went, look, you know what? Not everybody is necessarily going to accept me as this character. Even my own brother, my own flesh and blood, who had read and all the books numerous times, rereads the books to this day. When I told him, I said, "Oh yeah, I'm doing." He said, "What are you into?" I said, "Well, I'm playing this character named Bosch," and he immediately went to. He said, "Oh, are you doing a film about the painter Hieronymus Bosch?" I said, "Well, no, but the character, his name is Hieronymus Bosch, but he's an LAPD detective." And he went, "Wait, are you playing Harry Bosch?" And I said, "Yeah, yeah." And he he said, uh, "Well, I don't know."
Thanks for the confidence, bro.
Yeah, but then you know what? Then he saw the show. He saw the first the pilot episode, and he very gracefully called me up and he said, "Hey man, I take everything back." Um, and he's been along for the ride, and I think it's a point of pride with him now that like yeah.
With over a decade playing Harry, uh, this final season of Legacy, was it hard to find, was it surprising to still be Harry, but now he's a, private eye. He's not, Detective Harry Bosch, you know what I mean? Like what aspects of it was still easy for you or difficult?
Well, when he transitioned into being a private eye, which is what happens in the books, I thought it was interesting because he's even more isolated than ever, and he's got to work around stuff, working as a private eye. I mean, he has a lot of connections and friends in the department, but he's still kind of an outsider. So that those first two seasons allowed us to sort of explore that. And then when Maddie was kidnapped, right, he was kind of kept at bay. The captain at RHD was saying to J. Edgar, you know what? And they had that whole confrontation where in the tax van where Harry's saying, here we are, we're talking about this. You need to be out there doing this, that, and the other thing. And the captain says, look, you know, your presence here is a courtesy, and um so the unfolding of that was kind of interesting. But in this third season, I remember having this sort of epiphany, if you will, where I had just shot a scene and it felt I don't know. I was walking back to Video Village, and Thomas Bernardo, our producers and showrunners and writers, and Michael Connolly and our technical advisor, retired LAPD detective Tim Marcia, were there, and I had a smile on my face. And Tom Bernardo said to me, "What are you smiling about?" He said that scene went really well, and I said, "Yeah, yeah, no." And he said, "Well, so you're happy with that?" I said, "No, no, no. I was happy with the scene, but that's not why I'm smiling." And they said, "Well, what's that? What is that?" And I said, "I feel like a cop again." And it was weird because at that point, that's when I had to question my sanity for a minute because I felt like I was literally experiencing an emotion that Harry was feeling, which he felt like a cop again. rather than a private investigator. And that was a crazy and cool moment. And I said, in that conversation, I said, like in the books, Harry eventually he volunteers as a cold case detective for the San Fernando Police Department, which is a tiny little department. But I said to Mike and to Tom, I said, in the next season, let's discuss bringing Harry back as a cop, because I think we've given it a break, and we've done the private eye thing, but let's jump back into the canon of the books. Let's have him become a cop again. And I asked him, would he be able to return to LAPD? And Tim said, yeah, he could. He could go back to LAPD, into which I also said to Bernardo and Connolly, I said, you bring Harry back into LAPD after a 3 year absence. There are going to be some people that are really happy to see him back, and there are going to be a lot of people that are going to, be like, what should we hear? Effing Bosch, right? He's back.
Well, let me ask you, the father-daughter dynamic between Harry and Maddie has always been the core heartbeat of
Yeah.
going back to the original series. What has that relationship been like on screen and off screen with you and Madison, with Madison?
Well, that was originally just supposed to be, sort of a few episodes as a storyline to establish the fact that Harry was working in Vegas. He was working a case that took him to Vegas. And so, his lieutenant Billets said, when's the last time you saw your daughter? And he's always felt that kind of estrangement, right? Because he and Eleanor split up when she was really little. She's got a stepfather now, and, has lived in Hong Kong. And but what we realized is, Madison, she was a kid, but a very, very open, um, and raw as an actor. Um, and so, an interesting thing, Michael said, I think we need to make her part of the show. Because more a part of the show, because you guys, there's a great chemistry between the two of you. But Harry is always this isolated character. So when people are coming after him, he's the only chess piece on the board. But when you bring his relationship he reconnects with his daughter, now he has an Achilles heel. He's vulnerable. He can be gotten to. And because of that, that makes him extremely dangerous. And it brings in a different humanity. So from the get-go, when we decided to do that, was very, very protective of the relationship between Madison and I as actors. I didn't want I didn't want interference, and I didn't want a lot of input um, about those scenes. I sort of created a protective membrane around us, because I felt like I didn't want it to become a cliche or a tropey father-daughter relationship. It
Yeah.
needed to it needed to be a relationship where two people were getting to know each other, but they are father and daughter, but they don't know each other, so that they can evolve. And so in that process, in that over the years, that became really the heart of the show, was them kind of navigating each other, getting to know each other. Harry suddenly so Harry became vulnerable. And the only time he ever really expressed any kind of vulnerability or exposed himself, or revealed a layer, was in the process of his relationship with Maddie. Now, as far as the working relationship, we maintained that bubble right up until the last scene that we shot together on this scene. That bond is not separate, right? I always say I'm her TV dad, but I got to experience and had the privilege to be able to witness her growth as an artist. And she's an incredible actress. She's extraordinarily generous. She's very, very bright. And So to be able to witness that and to play a part of that has been incredibly rewarding, really rewarding. I saw her in a play that her fiance wrote that, and he was also in it.
Okay.
And they did it in this tiny little theater. And I remember years ago saying to Madison at the point, she was probably like 15 when I asked her, I said, so, what about theater? And she went, oh, no, no, no. I'm terrified of that. I have no interest in doing the theater. Then I saw her in the play and she was great in the play. And I said, so? And she went, you're right. I've been bitten. I just want to do more of this. So there's a lot of heart there. And
Yeah.
that's a lot of heart.
Well, I appreciate your time, Titus. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. And I really hope this isn't the end of Harry Bosch. Fingers crossed. There's got to be a movie. All right. I need a Harry Bosch movie, not straight to Prime. I want it in the theaters for everyone else to see.
From your mouth to Amazon's ears, brother. I thank you for having me on your show. It was a
It
pleasure.
was a pleasure talking to you, brother.
You have a blessed day.
You too.